it's time to continue my closer look at some of my favourite Predator figures from Neca. And today I'm going to be returning to AVP to look at this deluxe 2-pack featuring the Grid Alien and the Celtic Predator. And I really like that this set actually has its own subtitle, Rivalry Reborn. I think that's very cool. So without further ado, let's start off by looking at this packaging. Well, we've seen this before. It is of course giant clamshell packaging. It's mostly just plastic, and we have these rather thin, flimsy paper inserts inside. But on the front here we have a really nice image of the Alien and the Predator going head to head. I think this looks pretty cool and quite striking. And then of course in the window display we see the Grid Alien and the Celtic Warrior, and they look pretty cool. And when we flip the packaging, we can see Neca have gone to town on their production photography of these figures. They look absolutely immense. I love the dioramas they create for these photo shoots, and they're having immense fun here. You can really feel it, because we don't just have one stage shot, we actually have 3, and they're all super fun. I love how they've posed these figures to really show off the versatility, the articulation, and just how dynamic these can look. So this is tremendous fun. I think this looks fantastic. It's really fun to look at, great to put on display. And then of course at the bottom of the packaging we can see the other figures in this line, and I've said it many times before, but I love this AVP line from Neca. I think it's some of their best work. Then on the inside interior card art, we have this fantastic image of the Predator walking into that sort of chamber there where we see the stone alien markings on the ground. I love this image. We've seen it on the other AVP single carded figures in this line, but I think it's really good, and obviously it's writ large here. It's bigger and more expanded than on those single carded releases. So let's start off with the Celtic Predator, and I have to say I really love the body mould and sculpting on these AVP Predators, and the paint apps just really bring so much colour and vibrancy to them. And that's a really bold but effective choice, because in the film they're mostly in the dark, so we don't get to see some of this colour, but I really appreciate it in the action figures. I think they look fantastic. So in terms of the head sculpt, we can see that this is a pretty faithful recapturing of what we see on screen, and it looks really good. But with the enhanced colouring, we can actually see a lot more detail coming out of here, particularly on the face mask and the blue in the eyes. I just think this looks really good and very effective. As ever, there's so much detailing here, but I particularly love the scratches, the indentation on the top of the faceplate there. Gives it a lot of character, and I just think it looks fantastic. Likewise, I'm really pleased that the side plugs in the side of the helmet this time actually plug into the mask and they don't just disappear somewhere into the ether, as can sometimes be the case with some of these figures from Neca. I've mentioned it before, but I'm incredibly impressed with just how much detail we see on these Predator figures. Every aspect of this figure has something that catches the eye, and what we see here is a really fantastic set of paint apps as well that really capitalise on this sculpt to make sure that every bit of metal looks metal, to make sure that every part that should be skin tone looks like skin tone. It's bright and colourful where it should be, but also very detailed and nuanced where it needs to be as well, and I just think they've done an absolutely incredible job. You'll notice his right hand gauntlet has the extended blades, whilst his left hand gauntlet doesn't have any extra functionality. This is where his inbuilt laser cannon is. His lower right leg has an attached sheath to it, and in that sheath is a blade, which you can remove as an extra accessory here, and it looks absolutely fantastic. Again, very nicely sculpted and wonderfully painted. This looks very authentic. I love the metallic paint they've used for the blade, and all these individual bits of brown and gold and grey on the hilt as well. Just looks really nice. Articulation wise, he does have a ball joint in the neck, which I love, so he can of course move his head from side to side, but he can also lean it left and right and nod it up and down. So this is absolutely fantastic, and a little bit better than what we get with a lot of the Predator figures, which are usually on a stick and they don't have that articulation. Now he does have ball joints in the shoulders as well, so of course he can lift his arms up and out. There's a complementary bicep swivel, and you'll notice that shoulder pad definitely works with this articulation to make sure you can get the most out of it. There's a double joint at the elbow there, and there is also a swivel at the top of the gauntlet and then a pin swivel at the wrist there, so the gauntlet can spin all the way around, so can the hand, and the hand can also sort of hinge forwards and backwards a little bit as well. Now there does seem to be a ball joint in the upper torso, so we can sort of move from side to side and kind of lean left and right just a little bit. There seems to be another ball joint in the waist, but it kind of operates more as a swivel. It'll definitely allow him to move side to side, but it won't really allow him to bend forwards or backwards. Now there's ball joints in the hips, so those legs will kick out to the side. Of course they swivel at the top of the thigh there, there as well. There's also another pin swivel at the knee there, so that lower leg will rotate all the way around, but the legs will kick forwards, they'll kick backwards. There's a double joint at the knee, so that leg will kick backwards, and then there's another final ball joint in the ankle there that will allow the foot to move from side to side and hinge forwards and backwards. Now he is pretty light on accessories. He just comes with that blade that we've already seen and this sort of spiked boomerang as well. Again, these look really nice. They're nicely painted, nicely sculpted, and they work pretty effectively, especially the spiked boomerang, which fits in between his fingers. I think this looks really cool actually. And of course he has no problems holding that blade either in his left hand. There's a nice tight grip. So this looks pretty effective. Sadly, he doesn't come with any backpack or pulse cannon as we're used to with these figures, but he does have this laser cannon on his gauntlet there, which looks pretty cool when you pose it right. And yeah, I think this is pretty effective. I think this is a really fun release actually, and this works really well. Now we did get a single carded version of this figure which had a few more accessories, but all in all I think this is a really nice variant. Moving on to the Grid Alien, and I have to say straight away, it's great to have one that has such personality and distinctiveness, because there is a tendency for these aliens to look quite similar to one another, so it's great to have one that's so vivid and interesting. And there's no two ways about it. The Grid Alien is a particularly vicious customer, and I think they've done a tremendous job in recreating it here in action figure form. And this is glorious. I love how the grid has actually been sculpted into the dome. I think this looks really fantastic. Of course, that green paint, that luminous green paint as well, just really accentuates this sculpting, and it just looks fantastic. That splash of colour there just elevates this figure and gets away from the base plastic black and the wash that's running through. But again, so much detail here, so much colour as well, and it just looks absolutely fantastic. I love the silver of the teeth, I love the different washes of blue and black running throughout this figure, and the sculpting just looks absolutely immense, and it definitely has its own personality. It's very distinctively different to any other alien that we have in the line so far. Once again, every inch of this figure is covered in detail. Nothing has been left unsculpted. We see every ridge, every groove, every spike, everything about this, it just looks fantastic. And of course, as I keep saying, it's all capitalized on perfectly with a wonderful set of paint apps that just create this texture and depth and even a sense of sliminess to it. I just think it looks really, really good. If we look at the fingers as well, I particularly like this. I like that they're actually articulated, and we'll look at that articulation a little bit later. But again, we can see that they're actually experimenting with increasing the articulation that we've seen in previous Alien releases. And probably most significant about this version of the Grid Alien, because there is a single carded version out there as well, but this one has the snapped off tail, the cut tail at the very end, and we see that green acid pouring out, which looks really cool. Now, as much as I love the Aliens figures from Neca, one of the criticisms I might have had is that the articulation hasn't been spectacular, but they have taken a quantum leap forward with this alien, because he has a ball joint at the base of his neck, which allows him to move his head from side to side, lean it left and right, and yes, even move it up and down a really good distance. He's also got ball joints in the shoulders that allow his arms to kick up and out a little bit as well. There's a pin swivel at the elbow, allowing the lower arm to rotate all the way around and hinge to 90 degrees. There's a pin swivel at the wrist as well, again allowing the wrist to rotate all the way around, hinge forwards and backwards, but also he has that finger articulation I mentioned previously. So this is all really great stuff. He's then got a ball joint in his torso that allows him to spin from side to side, but also lean left and right a little bit, more of a wobble really, but he can also bend forwards and backwards a little bit with this articulation as well, which is pretty cool, and again is a massive enhancement on what we'd had previously. Now there's ball joints in the hips that allow the legs to kick out to the side there. They can also swivel at the top of the hip there, and the legs will kick forwards and they'll kick backwards. And of course there is a joint at the knee there that allows that lower leg to kick all the way back. In fact, it is a double joint, and it also spins on a pin swivel as well, which is great stuff. Now there does seem to be articulation at the ankle that allows the foot to straight swivel from side to side, and then there is finally toe articulation here as well. But that's not all, because of course it is the alien. He has his tail. The tail is made of rubber. There's a wire inside, so it will articulate at the bottom, the base of the spine there. It will rotate all the way around, and then the tail of course can be articulated into any pose you can get it into, and this is perfect for wrapping around other figures or using it to help it balance when it stands. In terms of extras, there's not an awful lot. You wouldn't expect it for an alien, but he does have the sawn off tip of his tail again with that acid effect, which is pretty cool and a nice touch. But also this net. Now, strictly speaking, of course, this is the Predator accessory, but I thought I'd bundle it in with the alien just to make it a little bit more out of this section. Now, there's not an awful lot to this end piece of the tail, of course, but it is, again, nicely sculpted, well painted, and that bleeding acid effect is pretty cool. No doubt the star accessory of this set is the net. I love how there's end pieces on this that actually allows you to tighten the net around something. I think this is absolutely fantastic. So of course you can drape this over your alien and then you can pull it close and actually have it completely tied up. I think this is a really cool accessory. I think it's the only time we ever have this accessory actually, so it is kind of unique to this set, and I think it's really fantastic. It works super well and it is really fun, and I'd probably say it's the highlight of this set because it opens the door to all sorts of different dynamic posing and display opportunities, which are really fun, and you can have a good time setting your figures up with this. And for a quick scale comparison, here they are standing next to each other. Of course, the alien is standing fully upright. This is as far as he will stand. And as you can see, he's actually got a pretty good height on him. Now, for the most part, you're going to want him crouched in different positions, but he does stand much taller than the Predator, which is pretty cool and actually a little bit surprising. So I love this. I think this works really nicely. And then overall, I have to say, what a fantastic set. This is spectacular stuff. Both of these figures are really top-end figures from Neca. They've done an absolutely incredible job. I love the detailing, I love the paint taps, I love the accessories, and I love the articulation. They're just fantastic. These are both premier editions of each line that Neca did retrospectively. They did, of course, the Alien line and the Predator line, and this kind of represents the best of both worlds. Now, both of these figures were released independently, single-carded, with minor tweaks and variants in terms of accessories and look, but all in all, I have to say, this is a really nice way to have both of them, and for me, has some of those really fun elements that you just couldn't get any other way. So I really love this set. I really love this line, and in particular, this sub-line, this AVP line, is for me probably the best that Neca ever produced. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and remember to subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos soon.